Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make really easy Christmas decorations using salt dough. To find any of the supplies that I've used in this video, just click on the link in the description box that will take you to my Amazon shop. Then choose the shopping list for salt dough ornaments. Here you'll find all the supplies that you need to complete this project. Thank you for supporting my channel. If you're new here, I am Deneen and this is Design by Deneen. I'm starting out with a nice clean mixing bowl and starting by adding 2 cups of flour. I've pre-measured this. This is just all-purpose flour. And then add half a cup of table salt. And then we're going to give everything a good stir. And the final ingredient is 3/4 of a cup of warm water. Adding the water a bit at a time. I've done mine in thirds. Once the dough gets to a point where it's a bit too gummy to stir, then it's time to knead it with your hands. For the first part, I kneaded it inside the bowl just to make sure that you're getting all the flour and salt absorbed. And then you want to take it out and knead it on a nice hard surface, such as a counter or a cutting board. I'm rolling out the dough just as I would for cookies using my rolling pin, which actually belonged to my mom. And as you can see, my dough is quite thin. I'm starting out by using standard cookie cutters. I have an angel and also a tree that I'm going to start out with. This is a ceramic cookie stamp that I bought many years ago at a specialty kitchen shop. It's never worked very well for me for cookies, but we're going to give it a try here. Press it down pretty hard. It looks pretty good. And now I'm just going to take a round cookie cutter and I'm going to center it nicely and cut it out. To make the hole in this one for hanging the ornament, I'm just using a straw, and this is just a paper straw and it works fine. I've made this one a bit thicker than the others. So I'm also going to try these silicone molds. I've only used these before with resin and it works really well, so we're going to try it with the salt dough and see how it goes. So I just tore off a chunk that's about the right size and I'm just pressing it in, and you want to press it in pretty firmly so that it gets in all the little nooks and crannies of the mold. I decided to give it a bit of a roll because I want the back of it to be quite flat so that I can glue it onto something else. So I gave it a roll with a rolling pin, and then I'm just going to scrape away all the excess bits of dough. So normally when I'm using the resin, it's dried to a hard finish. So because this is still a little bit bendy, it's a bit trickier to get out, but it still works. So you just want to bend them, and they're silicone so they bend really nicely and they don't rip or tear until you can kind of get a corner worked free, and then you just sort of pull it out carefully from there. Looks good so far. So now we're just going to take a paring knife and trim away any edges that shouldn't be there. Here is the rose, pretty much complete, and then the only thing I'm going to do after this is I'm just going to push down on the edges a little bit so you can't see where the edges of the mold are. This style should take you back to your days of Play-Doh in school. I'm rolling out 3 long, thin sections. Once all of your sections are complete, you're going to squeeze the top together, and then you're just going to braid them like you would braid hair. Then take the two end pieces, trim off any excess, and attach them together. I took a small flat piece of dough and cut it into a rectangular shape, and then pinched in the middle section to form a small bow shape. And then add the bow onto the section where the two pieces join together at the wreath. And then the final bit, I just took my paring knife and I added in the little knot area to the bow. I also had some of these 3D cookie cutters, and I've not had very good luck with these when using them on actual cookie dough, but this dough is not as sticky as actual cookie dough and much easier to press into. And since I didn't press it quite hard enough to break the edge area, I'm just using a small paring knife to cut the edge free. And I'm going to try one more of these 3D cookie cutters in an ornament shape. This is a little picture hanging kit. I think I picked it up at Walmart. And we are going to use a couple different methods here to put hangers onto our ornaments. Here I'm using one of the little eye hooks from the picture hanging kit, and I'm just threading it into the top of the angel, and these are uncooked at this point. They've not gone in the oven yet. For this version, I'm using a piece of the hanging wire, and I've just cut a very small piece off. I just cut it using scissors, and I formed it into a tight hairpin shape. And then I just pushed it into the top of the ornament. And of course, there's also the straw method, which I showed you earlier. Bake the cookies at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for about 2 hours. I did experiment a little bit when I was baking, and I turned the oven up for a little bit with some of the cookies and then turned it back down. I found that if you cooked it at a higher temperature, about 250, the cookies tended to rise and bubble a little bit. If you want your cookies to remain flat, use a much lower temperature for a longer time period. So 200 degrees at 2 hours should keep your cookies nice and flat. I gave this wreath a coat of my favorite key lime green spray paint. The bow is painted with holiday red. Before I add on the sparkles, I'm going to cover the bow with a tiny bit of masking tape so it stays clean. I'm using Mod Podge to attach the glitter. So I'm just painting the Mod Podge on the wreath on any areas I want glitter. To ensure that the glitter stays on the ornament and doesn't go everywhere else, I'm giving it a coat of clear varnish. It's a good idea to give all your ornaments a coat of clear varnish on the front and back to seal them and to ensure that they don't attract bugs. Here is my little train cutout, and it did bend a little bit when it cooled. It was actually flat when I took it out of the oven, but then as it dried, it bent a little bit. I'm using ice blue metallics, and this is one of my favorite colors. For the first coat, I'm just using a fairly dry brush, and I'm just giving a light brush over everything. And I'm not going to try to get into the little recessed areas because I want to paint those in a different color. For the secondary color, I'm using Rust-Oleum metallic accents in Goldmine. I'm just going to fill in all of the recessed areas using the gold. For the areas where it's a little bit harder to get into, I didn't worry too much about overlapping because I'm going to wipe this down when I'm finished. So now I'm taking a paper towel that's just lightly dampened and I'm just wiping off all that excess gold paint off the high sections. I'm using a foam brush to get another coat, and I'm just brushing lightly across the top so as to not get into the recessed areas. And this creates a really nice recessed 3D effect. For the angel, I'm starting out with a coat of silver metallic paint. And then once that's dry, I've added a layer of Folk Art Extreme glitter. Next, I'm doing an outline around the edges. And I'm just using iridescent puff paint for this. Once the first coat of puff paint dried, it went to a bit more translucent effect than I wanted, so I've decided to add another line of puff paint in the inside of this outline using just the straight opaque white. For this second 3D ornament, I'm just going to do the first bit of it in acrylic paint. And I'm using the gold mine again to fill in the recessed areas on the ornament, and then just a little bit of freehand. And to finish it off, I also added some gold on the top. So my small snowman has a couple coats of white flat acrylic paint and black for his hat and his face. I'm just using a small dowel to get the eyes nice and round. I wanted to add a button, and when I looked through my supplies, I found this really cute heart-shaped button, which I'm going to use. Next, I'm using a little bit of this mini washi tape. You could just as easily use a piece of ribbon in its place. I've attached the washi tape using a little bit of hot glue, and then I'm going to glue down the arms on the back side. For my tree cookie, I wanted to use a dark green. The only dark green I had was in this paint brand of acrylics, and I tried that. Unfortunately, I didn't really like the color when it was done, so I changed it to key lime green. And I added some wiggly lines using puff paint. Unfortunately, my video didn't work out for this part, but you get the drift. So this cookie doesn't really need any sealing on the front since it's gloss spray paint, but the back is getting a coat of clear sealant. My Santa ornament is also done just with using different colors of acrylic paint. I used holiday red for his suit and hat, and a good solid opaque white for the fur, and then I think the color for his face was conch shell, but you can make your Santa whatever color you need him to be. Sometimes you can learn almost as much from what didn't work, so here are what I consider my fails. I started by giving this one a coat of deep red in acrylic paint. Next, I applied a coat of black acrylic paint, and I made a point of rubbing it into all the deep recessed areas. Then I used a damp paper towel to wipe off the excess black paint. Next, I went back with my red using a foam brush and just brushing over the high raised areas. And finally, I did the same effect using a foam brush and gold paint, just brushing over the high points on the rose. I'm not sure that this one's recognizable as a rose in the end. It kind of looks a bit like a lump, so I'm counting it as a fail. This cookie, once it was baked, didn't come out as nicely as I wanted it to, but I'm still going to try to make it work. I'm starting with a coat of cinnamon brown because I wanted it to look more like a gingerbread cookie. Once the brown paint was dried, I used my gold color and I applied a coat of gold over the top. And then I used a damp paper towel to wipe it back to look more like a glazed effect. I gave this one a coat of opaque white, and I'm going to use this paper doily to make a kind of an interesting pattern. I actually would have preferred to have had a smaller one, but this is what I had, so we're going to make it work. I'm going to use a bit of spray adhesive. I've sprayed this one side of the doily and it's quite wet, so I'm just going to give it about 5 or 10 minutes for it to just get to a nice dry tacky finish. Now that the glue has gotten to a nice dry tacky finish, I'm just pressing it down and making sure that it's firmly attached so that you don't get any bleeding in the pattern. I'm using the gold paint and I've put it on a foam brush and I'm just sort of blotting off the excess here. You don't want a lot of paint on because it's going to bleed through if you use too much paint. And then you're really just going to dab it on, and you want to just go straight down and not pull it across. You just basically almost like you're blotting it. And if everything has gone according to plan, you should have a nice clean pattern underneath. Once the gold paint was dry, I went back and used gold puff paint to outline all the areas in the lace pattern. Am I the only one that thinks this looks like a Petri dish? Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've linked a couple more that you might also enjoy, including my Christmas playlist and my most recent Christmas video. Thanks again, and Merry Christmas!